Hey there, all you friends, true believers, and newcomers alike, and welcome to another Superfly Comics Guy haul video. These are books actually that arrived a couple weeks ago, but I wanted to hold off on unboxing them until I could do that with you guys. If you're new to my unboxings, these are not reviews, these are just more focused on first impressions, but we'll still be unwrapping them. I'll cover the price and the contents, talk about the covers. We'll do a quick stretch and take a look at the build quality and just flip through the book a little bit. But if you want full reviews, well, then you gotta subscribe so that you can catch those videos when they come out. Normally we'd jump into the other editions first and then do the omnibuses in ascending order of my personal excitement for them, but seeing as how we only have 3 books to cover in this video, I think I might mix that rule up a bit. So stay tuned, and if you enjoy the video at any point, you know how to show it, and feel free to leave your own comments about these books down below. But with that, sit back, relax, and let's look at these books together. Okay, so what better way to kick off a haul video than with my favorite character, drawn by one of my favorite artists, Spider-Man by David Michelinie and Mark Bagley, Omnibus Volume 2. Let's go. Absolutely lovely. There we go. We have the direct market cover to this omnibus. Very, very 90s, but in a kind of restrained way at the same time. It's not like fully crazy 90s, but you got Spider-Man and Carnage and Dr. Octopus, Hobgoblin, Cardiac, I think his name is. That's a super deep cut. And none other than Venom. There is also a standard edition cover featuring the Hulk, but I wasn't as much of a fan of that cover as I was this one. So that led to me picking this one. Here is the spine, very similar to design to Volume 1, so those will go nicely on your shelf together. And then the back, Maximum Carnage is just the beginning, it says. And that is because this book collects the entirety of the iconic Maximum Carnage storyline from the 90s. But speaking of contents, we have the Amazing Spider-Man 376 to 393, the annual 27 and 28, Web of Spider-Man 101 to 103 and 112, Adjectiveless Spider-Man or Spider-Man the 1990 series 35 to 37 and number 45, Spectacular Spider-Man 201 to 203 and 211, and the Amazing Spider-Man Ashcan edition number 1, Venom Lethal Protector 1 through 6, which I wasn't actually expecting that we would get in this omnibus, and material from Spider-Man Unlimited 1 and 2. Cover price of $125 US and $156.25 Canadian. Interesting that it also says it's printed in Turkey. Have other omnibuses now, or Marvel omnibuses now, been saying on the back here where they've been printed? I don't think so. It feels like a new thing. Once we dive in, we can find out specifically where in Turkey. But let's see what awaits us under this dust jacket. Ah, okay, interesting. We got a graphic here on the front. Is this the volume where they revisit some details about Peter's parents? I think so. I did read the omnibus that technically comes after this, Clone Saga Volume 1, and I recall there being some mention of the history of Peter Parker's parents, so that might be how that ties in here. Here is the spine, a little bit different. Do you guys prefer the white spine or the black spine? Let me know. I can't decide. I think it depends. And nothing there. So it's not a wraparound cover. That's okay. I'm sure there'll be a wraparound in one of these books, right? Maybe? Maybe the next one. We'll see. Anyway, let's stretch this one and see how the eye is. Wow, okay, initial stretch done. And I gotta give kudos. That is a really big eye. And it seems to be definitely making for a good visual experience in terms of gutter loss. I did check at the beginning and confirm that this is printed at the EMAC printer in Turkey. So that settles that. We unfortunately know what we're getting in terms of page quality from that printer. It's just very, very thin. I'm sure you can probably see, is that, I can't tell if that's art from the other side of the page or if it's like some sort of dirt or residue. What the heck is that? No, that's art from the other side of the page, I think. Yeah, you may be able to see on camera that it's quite apparent that you're getting bleed through on these pages. There's a lot of white, and that just means it's that much easier for art to bleed through from the other side. So that's unfortunate. I mean, you got Mark Bagley on art, and you're gonna ruin the reading experience with the super thin pages. It's just unfortunate. We have page numbers though, and I believe at the beginning we have a table of contents. Let me check. Make sure I'm not lying to you guys. Would never be able to forgive myself if I did. Yeah, we have a table of contents with Carnage and Venom fighting there. Love the way Mark Bagley draws them. Yeah, speaking of, you're getting wait, that's not Mark Bagley. That is Jeff Johnson, guest penciler. Huh, interesting. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that art, but skip ahead a little bit. Yeah, so this is volume 2 of the David Michelinie and Mark Bagley Omnibus. So that closes out the David Michelinie and Bagley run, and it should lead directly into Clone Saga Volume 1. So now we have Todd McFarlane's run collected with Michelinie, we have Michelinie and Larson, and now we have Michelinie and Bagley. And we have all of Maximum Carnage collected in this book as well. So to you collectors out there who've been keeping up with the Spider-Man line, that might raise the question, what's the point of the Spider-Man versus Venom omnibus then? Because really the big draw of that book was that it collected the story Maximum Carnage in there. But now that we have a more sort of continuous omnibus line here with McFarlane and Larson and Bagley, I don't know, maybe you don't need both on the shelf. But maybe you're just a big Venom fan. So in that case, maybe you want the Spider-Man versus Venom omnibus still because it's like a highlight reel of Venom's early appearances. I don't know. That'll be up to the individual. This looks super cool though. Yeah, Bagley's definitely one of my favorite artists. I've said before he's my favorite, but I'm terrible at picking favorites. So we'll say he's one of my favorites. Yeah, his style here is similar to what he later did in the Ultimate Spider-Man run, but you can tell still some differences. Peter's a bit more muscly and more, I don't know, more capable here, obviously. Whereas in Ultimate Spider-Man, that's a younger Spider-Man, a different universe, so he's a little bit more skinny and inexperienced in that one, and that reflects in the artwork. Maximum Carnage, if you're not familiar with that, that's probably the biggest story collected in here. It's a 14-part crossover with among the Spider-Man titles that were going on around the time. So you could argue, speaking of, here's Maximum Carnage, a bit from that story right here. You could argue that's kind of where they started to go a little overboard with the crossovers, because the idea being that the story would start in Amazing Spider-Man and then continue in the other spin-off titles like Web of Spider-Man and Spectacular Spider-Man and Adjectiveless Spider-Man. Beforehand, all these lines sort of existed on their own, so you didn't really have to do so much hopping around, but I guess the marketing team thought that, they could push sales by forcing readers to pick up all of the titles just to keep up with the story, and I don't know. it was a slippery slope because by the time you got to the Clone Saga, that stuff was just getting out of control. But hey, we're not here to talk about the Clone Saga. If you want to read it, if you want to know about the Clone Saga, go check out my reviews that I've done on all 4 omnibus volumes collecting that story. But yeah, very happy to have this book, and it's definitely a big gap filler in the collection. All right, well, moving on from Spider-Man, or are we? Just kidding, we're going straight into another Spider title, the Spectacular Spider-Man Omnibus by J.M. DeMatteis and Sal Buscema. Let's dive into this one. There we go. So we have this time the standard cover to this omnibus. A super cool cover. Spider-Man fighting the Green Goblin. How's that possible? I thought the Green Goblin was dead. Well, I guess we'll have to find out by reading, won't we? There is also a direct market cover, another one of the covers from this run. That one features Spider-Man in a encounter with the Rhino, but I wasn't as much of a fan of that cover. It just looked a little bit goofy to me. Maybe that's just me though. Here is the spine, a bit unusual looking. It's a blue spine, Spectacular Spider-Man. So that is one of the spin-off titles of, the Amazing Spider-Man being the main title, obviously. And this is going to collect Sal Buscema and J.M. DeMatteis' run, which I'm really excited for. It comes up a lot in discussions about the best Spider-Man runs of all time. J.M. DeMatteis is the acclaimed scribe who wrote the unforgettable Spider-Man saga Kraven's Last Hunt, and that's known as arguably one of Spider-Man's best stories, if not his best story. So there's a lot of hype going into this, and we got the Marvel cover gallery here. Look at all the characters and villains you're getting in here, from the Vulture to the Green Goblin to the Rhino, as I mentioned. Puma, that's another bit of a deep cut there. Carnage, it looks like this does collect the issues, or the Spectacular Spider-Man issues of Maximum Carnage, so there's a little bit of overlap with the Michelinie book that we just took a look at. Tombstone, lots of characters. It really looks quite interesting. We got well, let me go over the contents first. It collects the Spectacular Spider-Man 178 to 216, Annual 12 to 14, and Amazing Spider-Man Soul of the Hunter. So a pretty straightforward contents list there, and cover price is $125 US, $156.25 Canadian. It says printed in China, so my guess is the Donnelly printer, but we will take a look once we open the book. But first, let's look at the board design here. Yes, there's our wraparound cover that I was hoping for. That looks quite cool. Okay, so you know the drill. Let's give it a stretch, and then we'll take a look at that. Okay, so first stretch is done. Not as big of an eye as we got in the Michelinie and Bagley book, but not for nothing. It's still decent. I would have liked it to be a little bit bigger, though. There's buffered white space between the pages here that helps a little bit with the gutter loss. But I have a feeling that if we encounter a spread page, we might have some gutter loss in the book. But you never know. This was, oh God, what time period would this cover? Is this the late 80s or early 90s? Well, I guess it would have to line up with the Maximum Carnage storyline, so early 90s makes more sense. So maybe we won't have too many spread pages to worry about. Let's check where it was printed. It says, yeah, the Donnelly printer in China. Usually that one's pretty good, but I am noticing the pages are, well, they're definitely thicker than the previous book, the one from the EMAC printer, but it seems like the Donnelly printer's pages have also gotten thinner over the years, because now I'm seeing page bleed coming through on this one too. And that didn't really used to be the case as much before. Blame it on inflation, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, let's take a look at that wraparound cover. That's super cool. Do love me a good wraparound cover, and that is a good one. Yeah, Sal Buscema, I feel like, doesn't get talked about enough in the lineup of legendary Spider-Man artists, but I do like his style a lot. It sort of reminds me a little bit of, well, obviously it has some inspiration from what Todd McFarlane first did to radically change the art style of Spider-Man and how he's drawn, but he also has a little bit of that, a little bit of like John Romita Jr. in him, but like more refined, if that makes sense. And I just find that Sal Buscema's style, the way he draws Spider-Man, just reminds me of a little bit of the Spider-Man from the 2000 PlayStation 1 Neversoft Spider-Man game. That vibe. I'm not really sure why, but that's kind of the Spider-Man I think of when I see Sal Buscema's drawings. Now, I'm not super familiar with the contents of this run. I just know it's highly praised, and I was super excited to pick it up and finally see what all the fuss is about. So if you guys know more about this and why it's so good, I'd love to hear from you. Without spoilers, please, of course, because I do want to get the enjoyment of reading it for myself. But yeah, I know there's big stories involving the Green Goblin in here, and you know, a whole host of villains too. Aunt May and the Vulture, what's going on there? The art style is really, really cool. I think it explores more of Peter Parker's relationship or friendship with Harry Osborn as well, and where that goes. But otherwise, I'm not, like I said, just not super familiar with what it is that makes this run so good. But you know me, I'm always down for some super good Spider-Man reading, so very excited for that. We do have page numbers, and I believe, yes, a table of contents. Love to see that. That makes me happy. But okay, on to our final book. Okay, my most anticipated book in this haul, and it's not even an omnibus. Absolute Batman Dark Victory. Finally, this makes me so happy to have in my possession. Let's start taking a look. And there we have it, the hard case for the Absolute Edition of Dark Victory, and we have the certificate here that comes with it that gives you a little blurb about the story, the creative team, the price, all that fun stuff. But what we're really here for is this. Here is the front featuring an image of Robin here. Let's flip it over. This isn't really, well, this is the spine of the book, but we're looking into the inside of the hardshell case here. And then a picture of Batman as well. And then there is the spine of the Absolute Edition. So let's take it out of its hardshell case. There's no variant covers or anything like that. That's not really a thing for Absolutes as far as I'm aware anyway. And there we go, we have the book itself, which looks very nice, might I add. A similar image here on the front, and then there is the spine. Got this interesting texture to it. It's not quite leather, but it kind of has that look to it. And nothing really on the back. This Absolute Edition has a cover price of $100 US and $131 Canadian, and it collects I believe it's the 13 issues that comprise this story titled Dark Victory. But let me give it a stretch and we'll do a flip through and take a better look at it. And there we go. Absolutely, no pun intended, incredible, as I would expect from an Absolute Edition. That eye is perfect, no gutter loss as far as I can tell. The pages have this, they're more matte. They got this matte finish to them rather than glossy. I do have the Absolute Edition for the previous story, or the story that comes before this, which is Long Halloween, and I don't think that one had pages like this. But maybe I'll have to revisit that. Maybe that's something I can do in a video. Take a look at the Absolute Edition of Long Halloween. Let me know if that's something you guys would like. But man, let's take a flip through this. Why is this my most anticipated book in this haul? Well, I've been looking for this for a really, really long time. Basically, since I started collecting Batman, I wanted to have the Absolute Edition of Dark Victory. Now, I've read this before. I've done a review on the Batman Omnibus by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, and that collects the stories Haunted Night, Long Halloween, which is my favorite Batman story, the follow-up here, Dark Victory, and the spin-off story, Catwoman When in Rome. All by the creative team, Jeff Loeb the writer, Tim Sale the artist, and man was he an artist. Such a distinctive and unique and atmospheric look that he would apply to these characters, especially Batman, and that you've probably heard that creative team before if you're familiar with comics, because they also did the Colors series for Marvel, and they did Superman for all seasons, I believe. Yeah, they're definitely no strangers to working with each other. But Batman Dark Victory. So, Long Halloween is my favorite Batman story, and I tend to just lump this one in with it because this is the follow-up, but this really is the part 2, if you will, to Long Halloween. So, Long Halloween is a murder mystery, if you're not familiar with it. It's a bit of a whodunit. It's set early on in Batman's career, second year or so. And in that story, Batman was tasked with uncovering the identity and solving the case of a murderer who would murder and commit his crimes on specific holidays. And no, it's not who you think it is. And I really, really loved that story because it's so new reader friendly. It's really easy to pick up. It's not really muddled in continuity. You can just kind of pick it up and enjoy it. The Batman films have taken a lot of inspiration from Long Halloween and its atmosphere, that sort of more street level, grounded, gritty approach. It has more of a focus on Batman's detective side, which I love. I love seeing Batman in a more grounded setting and just being a detective, because that's something, an element of Batman that I think writers tend to forget, that he's supposed to be the world's greatest detective. Like, he's not just a brute that goes out in the night and beats people up and gets his information that way. Like, no, show the audience that he's super smart and that he can solve these things. And it's just fun reading along and trying to solve the case with him. So Dark Victory is the follow-up. It's 1 year after Long Halloween, if I'm not mistaken, and it follows a very similar structure. There's a killer on the loose called Hangman, who is murdering victims and targeting people who were involved with the events of Long Halloween. So I don't recommend reading this if you haven't read Long Halloween. It's best enjoyed. Those two stories are best enjoyed as a package deal. But they're so, so good. I strongly, strongly recommend you read them. Like I said, if you're kind of a new reader to Batman, it's so easy to pick up. Oh, God, this is one of my favorite panels. I think I mentioned, or I pointed this panel out in my review of the Omnibus as well. But, like, it really shows you the detail that Tim Sale puts into his art, where he's painting this picture of this crime scene, this police officer interrogating this woman. But if you look In the background, you can see Batman is just a silhouette here. He's overlooking the whole scene. Very, very detailed. I love the way Tim Sale draws Batman with this sort of exaggerated long cape. It kind of reminds me, and the pointy ears, the long pointy ears, it reminds me of the way Batman's portrayed in the Arkham video games. So again, if you're a fan of the video games or the films, I think you'll really, really enjoy this book. Christopher Nolan even has said that The Long Halloween was a big inspiration for The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. And it just does a really good job of taking you through the mythos of Batman and introducing you to all these characters if you aren't already familiar with them. It's just really, really well done. And that's why I double dipped and got the Absolute Edition of it, because I get Absolute Editions for stories or creators that resonated with me in a very specific way. And this is definitely one of those stories. So I was looking for the Absolute Edition of this for a really long time. Like I said, basically when I started collecting Batman, and I could never track it down. It was just always out of print, going for insane prices. So you can imagine my elation when it was announced that they'd be reprinting this edition. So I had to snag it up right away, of course. But there we go, you guys. It was a short haul, but a good haul. Quality over quantity. And honestly, that's probably how my subsequent hauls are going to be. They're going to be more spread out, and it's going to be probably fewer books in each haul. It definitely won't be doing the huge 10 plus book hauls that I was doing in some of my earlier videos. I'm pretty happy with where my collection's sitting right now, so the new purchases have definitely slowed down, but let me know what you guys thought about any of these books in this haul. Have you picked any of them up? Let me know. Let me know your thoughts about any of the stories down below, or if you have any questions, please let me know. But that does it for this time around, so thank you so much for joining me today, you guys. I hope to catch you in another video real soon. So you have yourselves a great day. I've been Superfly Comics Guy, and until next time, you keep reading. Bye-bye, guys.